Our second reading this morning is from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 60, verses 1 to 6. Listen for the word of God. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will arise upon you, and His glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look around. They all gather together, they come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. And then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you, the young camels of Midian and Ephah. All those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the praise of the Lord. May God add a blessing to this reading of the Word. I'm going to come down here. One of the favorite things that I do in my job is to teach Bible study. Because I love to learn about the Bible, and I have discovered over time that the best way to do that is to teach it to other people, because if you've ever been a teacher, one of the things that you discover is the process of teaching is also the process of learning. And so it's one of the high points of my life, and I've noticed over time that there are different kinds of Bible students, and they're all good. If they show up for Bible study, it's good. One kind are the people who, I think of them as the baby birds. They come because they want to know something about God and something about the Christian life. But they want somebody else to break it off, tear it up, go looking for it, rip it into pieces, chew it up for them, and put it into their mouths for them. They're looking for those kernels of knowledge and wisdom that will allow them to live their everyday life a little more easily. And if the pieces you bring them are a little too chunky, if they're a little too big, if they're still wriggling in some way, if they're not clearly identifiable as food, that type of student gets frustrated, and sometimes they fall away from the project. Another kind of student are the ones who basically want to know what to do. That they're still entranced by this cultural notion that God will love us like a parent if we do good, and will be mad at us and not like us if we do bad. And so they really want to know what are the things that we should do. So they're looking for the rules and the regulations for living because they don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to do the wrong thing. And those people really get frustrated when they come to my Bible study because I have absolutely no interest in that. Because I don't think that this thing that we have gathered to do is about learning to behave properly. This thing that we have come together to do, whether it's in Bible study, whether it's at worship, or whether it's in mission projects in the community, or whether it's in mission projects way off in far Africa, this thing that we have gathered to do is about coming to know the reality of who God is. And to know that reality with our brains, but also to know that reality with our hearts. Which brings me to a third kind of Bible study student that is just a joy to work with. And you might think that they aren't, because they are the people who really want to dig in and see what's under there. And sometimes they get annoyed because the thing that they're finding there is not the thing that they were told to expect to find there, and it kind of makes them mad. And so they are also the people who are not afraid to say, now wait a minute, that can't be right. They're the people who are willing to kind of take it by the lapels and shake it for all it's worth to see what will fall out of its pockets. They are the people who really, really, really want to know what's in here, and for some reason, it's really critical to them that they find out. These are the ones that I really learn from, because they're the ones who push at the edges of what I already know and force me to go find out the things that I don't already know. They're the ones who ask the questions that oftentimes open up a whole new level of meaning in a text for me that I had never considered before. They're not convenient to have in class. They're not always safe to have in class, but they are always productive and in the long run a joy to have as students. And maybe if you are teachers, you know the thing I'm talking about, even if you're not a teacher of the Bible necessarily. These are the people who really want to know who God is, really. These are the people who want to grow, break out of that kind of little shell of a faith that we built when we were in kindergarten. They're not satisfied anymore with the God that mom and dad told them about. They want to know about the God that really is. And they're not afraid. They're the ones who really are looking, searching for the light of God in their lives. And they're not willing to wait. They're not willing to settle for a flashlight or a candle or the light that comes from your cell phone. They really want to find the light. They're really looking under every rock to find out what it is that God is and what God wants from them and what God is willing to offer to them. Sometimes those people are outsiders. Sometimes they're annoying to believers who feel like they have it all nailed down and they don't want anybody looking under the rocks. Sometimes they come in from the outside and they're angry because they've been listening to what the culture says about our faith, and they think it's a lot of pap and they don't want it, but they want to know what's real, and so they're a little bit edgy. They're outsiders, but they want to be insiders if the light is really inside. I want you to think about the wise men as that kind of person, because I think that that's what their example brings to us. These are not necessarily Jews, though they may know Jews, because they might be from Babylon, where there was a Jewish community. They might be familiar with Isaiah and his writings, but these are men who are studying a lot of writings. They're looking deep. They're turning the pages. They're turning over the rocks. And they're wondering, how do these pieces fit together? These are also men who are astronomers and astrologers, because in that day, the two fields of astronomy and astrology had not yet divided. So they are scientists of a sort, but they're also mystics of a sort. They're looking in the skies for signs of what is going on. The interesting thing about the fact that they are both astrologers and astronomers is that they would be familiar not only with the zodiac of their own particular culture, but most cultures have a zodiac. The names of the houses are different. In the Hebrew zodiac, one of the houses is the house of David. So these are guys who are looking at the stars and the ways that the stars come together and align with each other. I went to a presentation at the planetarium in Minneapolis with Levi when he was about 10. and heard a fascinating lecture from a guy from the University of Minnesota talking about how it was quite possible that the Star of Bethlehem was an alignment of the planets that would have been in the house of David in the Jewish zodiac. And that would have been the thing that led these scholars to Bethlehem. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It was an interesting idea. But what's important is, these are outsiders, these are strangers, these are people who are looking, who are searching for the truth, who are looking for the light. And when they begin to see it coming together in alignment, they are people who are willing to take the risk, to set out on a journey where they don't know what the destination is. They do not know what will happen to them on the journey. Robbers are just a piece of it. They might also grow. They might also have to abandon precious suppositions and expectations that they have grown up with. They might have to change their religion. They might have to really rethink the nature of the world in a serious way that will affect their lives. These are courageous men who will follow the light no matter where it takes them, no matter what the destination may end up being. These are faithful men in search of God. And it's probably a good reminder for us that faithful men and women who are really searching for the reality of God in the world and who desire deeply a relationship with God are not always people like us. They're not always insiders. It's very trendy to say that only people who are signed on the dotted line Christians can be saved. But my guess is that it is people who are deeply searching for the reality of God who are really on their way to finding Him. The other thing to think about these guys is what they bring. If you were paying attention to the lyrics in the hymn that we just sang, each of the gifts that Matthew mentions have a significance. Gold is a gift that you would bring to a king. And in that gift is the acknowledgement that whatever this thing is that God is doing in this child, God is expressing God's sovereignty, and they are laying themselves before the King of the universe. That is what they are willing to do. That is their response to their searching for the light. They recognize in Jesus, they recognize that what God is leading them to is God's own sovereignty in the world. They are willing to be obedient to the sovereignty of God and the world. They discover at the end of the journey that sovereignty is embodied in the life of a child. They bring frankincense, which is worship. You burn incense as an act of worship, as a sacrifice. And frankincense was particularly expensive incense. This is something that you would bring as a gift to a god. And they are understanding as they move towards the light that what they are coming to worship is a god. Frankincense. Myrrh is a perfume used in the taking care of dead bodies so that they don't smell bad in those first few days after they're buried. There's an understanding buried in that gift that this one that they are coming, this embodiment of the sovereignty of God, is a sacrifice of God to God. They are understanding in their gifts. We realize that they are understanding. They are knowing what it is that the light is bringing them to the sovereignty of God, to God Himself, to the heart and nature of God, which is willingness to give fully of self. And in a sense, those three gifts are also, they're a testament to who the child is. But they're also a testament to who these searchers after the light are. We are all living in darkness, every bit as much as the people to whom Isaiah was writing. Every bit as much as the people in Palestine when Jesus was born. Every bit as much as human beings before and after those times. We are people living in deep darkness. We have the choice, I think, to be people who are searching for the light. We have the chance and the invitation to be the people who peer deeply into the Scriptures. We have the opportunity, we have the invitation to be those people who scan the world around us, whether it's the stars or whether it's the newspaper or whether it's the realities of the community in which we live or the realities of the lives of the people we know and love or the people who live down the street, to keep our eyes open and our ears open and our minds open and our hearts open to the thing that God is doing in the world every moment, to the light that God is bringing into the world everywhere around us. We have the invitation and the opportunity to be the wise men who seek the light, who seek not just to know what we're supposed to do next, who seek not just for the little nibbles that somebody else is willing to chew up for us, but to seek the light of God as it is revealed to us directly. The light that God is shining in the world to lead us to Himself. Be those people. Be the wise men, the magi from the east. Take the risk to cross the desert, to brave the bad guys, to not know what's going to be there along the path, to not have to know exactly where you're going before you're willing to set off on the journey. Thanks be to God.